Does, trust me, it's going to start falling. He's going to have a sensational freshman year.
We are underway. The Cats control the opening tip. Your officials, Joe Lindsay, Todd Austin, Nate Green. There's number 4 in white, Nick Richards, one of the fabulous freshmen. P.J. Washington finds Richards inside, and the first 2 points of Kentucky's season are up. Underneath, that's a call to Mannion.
A big key for Utah Valley tonight is going to be able to attack the pressure. Great length across the floor for Kentucky. If you can push it in transition and find a seam like they just did right there, that's what you're going to be looking for.
Knox lost the ball, first turnover of the night for the Wildcats. That's tipped out of bounds, and it'll stay the Wolverines basketball. Well, Kentucky's starting 5, one of the youngest in the nation. They're starting 5 freshmen tonight, and they all average about 19 years old, Sean.
First time since the national championship game in 2014 against UConn that Kentucky has started a full 5 of freshmen in a regular season game.
And conversely, Utah Valley, one of the oldest teams in the country.
An older and experienced team. Players that are on the floor right now from Xavier, from Oklahoma, from BYU. They've been around.
And we've got a foul on the play. P.J. Washington came over from the weak side to block it, number 25 in white, but they've got him for a foul.
And things are different. You know, the non-conference, the exhibition stuff that goes on, the games don't matter. And then all of a sudden, the games start to count. And it's different. And you can have a plan, and you can get excited. And with 5 freshmen out on the floor right now, their anxiety, their energy level is going to be a little bit more amped in the first couple of minutes in this game.
And the first 2 free throws of the game are good by Connor Toulson, a 6'4" junior out of Highland, Utah, one of the better free throw shooters in the Western Athletic Conference. And another steal. That ball goes out of bounds. It'll stay Utah Valley basketball.
The big key and a point of emphasis for Coach Pope today for Utah Valley was they are going to load to the ball, and that's what you saw on that last possession.
Well, there's the Hall of Famer in his 9th season in Lexington, John Calipari. All he's done is lead the Cats to 6 Elite Eights in his first 8 years, including 4 Final Fours. Come into this season, ranked number 5 in the nation. Here's Toulson from outside. No. He's the best shooter on this Wolverines team. It goes out of bounds. It'll be Kentucky basketball. And we already showed you Mark Pope, familiar face to Big Blue Nation, helped UK win that national title back in '96. The big word for Pope when we watch practice, pace. What does he mean by that?
Well, they want to play fast, and they want to play in control. I mean, Utah Valley is going to do what Utah Valley is going to do all season long. They're not going to change their system or adjust their approach just because they're playing Kentucky tonight and Duke tomorrow night.
8 on the shot clock. Richards has his 2nd bucket of the night. Nick Richards, a 6'11" freshman, originally from Kingston, Jamaica, played his high school basketball in New Jersey, the same high school, the Patrick School, as Michael Kidd Groothuis. Here's Jake Toulson, number 2 in dark.
That's too easy. You got to want to stop the ball and initiate your defense. You got to stay in a stance, and you've got to play with a concerted effort every single possession. And that's one of the teaching things that Kentucky's been focused on so far in this early season.
Blocked by Mannion. Here come the Wolverines. Thought about a transition 3. It's a double dose of Toulsons for Mark Pope's Wolverines. They're second cousins. Jake, number 11. Jake is number 2, and Connor is number 11. From the wing, Randolph off the mark. And here's Hamidou Diallo. Diallo, number 3 in white, his first shot. Off the mark from beyond the arc. Kenneth Ogby comes away with it.
That's a good call. Ogby carrying the ball, just got his palm underneath it, started to rotate it over. A good start for Utah Valley, and then Lenyon Gabriel just enters the game for P.J. Washington, who got burned on that possession on the layup to the rim. And the guy that they just brought in, Wenyon Gabriel, I think has been one of the most improved, if not the most improved player on this roster. Obviously, there weren't a lot of players that returned from a season ago, but he really has worked hard on his game. You're going to see him much more comfortable behind the arc. you're going to be able to see him sustain his energy level. The best aspect of Wenyen Gabriel's game a season ago was his energy. He played with such a frenetic pace, but then all of a sudden there'd be periods where he'd disappear on the floor. I don't think you're going to see that this season.
That foul was on number 11, Connor Toulson, his first. Diallo inbounds to Gabriel. Here's Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, number 22. Primary ball handler as a freshman out of Canada. Gabriel. In and out. And a foul is going to be called on Utah Valley. Looks like it's going to go on number 3, Brandon Randolph. We listened in on Mark Pope's pregame speech, and even though the nation didn't hear it, what we heard him talking about was rebounding. Obviously, any team's going to have a challenge rebounding against the length of this Kentucky team.
The wingspans across the entire lineup are ridiculous. You think about point guard Shea Gilgeous-Alexander has better than a 6'10 wingspan and stands at 6'6", and he's your point guard.
Richards, short baseline jumper, no good. Ben Nakwasa, number 10 in dark, is checked in for Mark Pope's club. Deep three. Toulson off the mark, the rebound to Diallo. And if there is such a thing as a veteran freshman, it's Hami Diallo. The jumper off, Manyang the rebound. There's Nakwasa, the floater, no good. Gabriel snags it, and Kentucky wants to run. Here's Knox in transition. He gets fouled and will go to the line and shoot 2. Or play in Durham as well. Their goal is to win the WAC tournament this year and face a team like a Duke or a Kentucky in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
Made massive strides last year under Coach Pope, 17-17, but they did win their first postseason game in the CBI that the program has ever had. And a relatively new Division I program, yet they've been able to build it through really second chance players. He doesn't mince words. He said, look, we're second chance you right now, and we give players an opportunity to get their careers back on track and find their way at the collegiate level. And it's a great opportunity for these players to get tested in back-to-back nights. I love it. Why not play the best? You want to be good? You want to get better for conference play? You've got to play great competition in your non-conference.
Jake Toulson, got fouled on the follow. And Toulson, a 6'5 redshirt sophomore out of Gilbert, Arizona, will go to the line and shoot 2. Jake Toulson, one of those prime examples of second chance use. Started his career at BYU as a Cougar, transferred, sat out last year, and now playing with Utah Valley.
He spent a lot of time in the offseason getting in better physical shape. He's the nephew of Celtics general manager Danny Ainge. He was a great scorer coming out of high school and out of Arizona, and has struggled to find his way at BYU offensively and has now found his rhythm at Utah Valley.
And speaking of scoring, he's first cousins with Ryan Toulson, who a lot of Wolverine fans will know is the all-time leading scorer in Utah Valley's history. Toulson knocked them both down. It's a 3-point Wolverine lead inside Rupp Arena. Opening night, college basketball.
Right now, nobody besides Nick Richards has made a shot.
Catch and fire from Knox, no good.
And Kentucky really struggling to find quality looks, and you credit that for Utah Valley. They're really pinching and taking away the post. You've seen no transition looks early for Kentucky. They haven't had a lot of deflections, and their turnovers haven't been live ball turnovers, and that means the opportunity to find easy transition looks, Rich.
Randolph out to Nakwasa. And Gabriel has another rebound. What does Kentucky want to do offensively?
Well, they want to be able to score on the open floor, and that starts with the defense. Rebounding the ball and looking to go, but the defensive transition has been really good so far for the Wolverines. Offensively, a lot of times, too, what you'll see for Kentucky in the early stages of the season, they talk about positionless basketball. They try to find the mismatch and then exploit it. And thus far, they haven't been able to really exploit very much of anything at the offensive end of the floor.
John Calipari was very honest with all the media, including us, in the run-up to this first game of the regular season. He is not sure what he has yet. He was very hard on this team leading up to game 1 of this season. He said he's treated this team probably tougher than he's treated any of the teams in the previous 8 seasons, and now he felt like on game day I'd give him a little love instead of the tough love that he was giving him leading up.
He mentioned to us reprogramming and reteaching. Look, how do you prepare for a game? This is different than high school. You're at Kentucky. This is the first game. This matters.
Diallo, no. Big rebound by Mannion. The 7-footer coming down with it. Here's Randolph, transfer from Xavier. Quade Green, 0 and white. Touted as one of the best freshman point guards coming in. 10 on the shot clock for the Wolverines. Now 5 to shoot. Toulson, blocked by Gabriel. He's been a presence in the middle. And that's a shot clock violation. Good defense by the Cats.
Rotation defensively. First time we've heard this Rupp Arena crowd kind of get into the game a little bit. And a nice job by Wenyen Gabriel, leaving his man. And again, the length of Kentucky. This is what potentially can make them an elite level defensive team. They've been a step slow in the early stages of this one. You look for energy. I look for number 32 in white to provide it. See if they get something going down here offensively. Nothing smooth in the early stages.
Green skip pass. Gilgeous-Alexander knocks down the 3 from the wing. First 3 of the season for the Kentucky Wildcats. Ties this one up at 8.
A nice job, a good read by Quade Green, finding Gilgeous-Alexander over the top of the defense. He wasn't the nearest pass. He was the second nearest pass and threw it over the top and created enough space to give him a clean look.
Green and Gilgeous-Alexander, the 2 primary ball handlers. Do you anticipate them being on the floor a lot this season together?
I think it provides a very unique lineup for them. I think it gives them multiple ball handlers, which I think they need, especially early in the season.
Leave. Nielsen, another veteran presence for Utah Valley. Isaac Nielsen has his first 2. He also transferred over to Orem, Utah from BYU. Sasha Kalia-Jones knocks down the baseline J.
I like the last 2 possessions for Kentucky. That time they got into the teeth of the defense and they all collapsed around the ball. A nice kick out to a good solid mid-range shooter. Ten to shoot. This game moving at a slower pace than I think either team would like. 3 on the shot clock. And Randolph just got swallowed up by that Wildcat size. And a turnover by Gilgeous-Alexander. Well, we'll have another full slate of college football for you Saturday. Ole Miss hosts Louisiana Lafayette at noon Eastern. Then at 6-3, Kentucky taking on Vanderbilt at 4. And to cap off the day, it's Tennessee and Mizzou in our SEC Saturday night game presented by Holiday Inn Express. All 3 games also streaming live on the ESPN app. You think about Kentucky sitting at 6-3, heartbreaking loss to Ole Miss in the final seconds of that game last week. But overall, a good start for the Kentucky Wildcats football program. They need to get one back on the road now.
5 of their last 6 games have been decided by less than a touchdown. How about that from Kenneth Ogby?
I'm shocked right now with the ease in which Kentucky's allowing dribble penetration against their defense.
Mark Pope said they're not afraid to play, and they are showing that. Quade Green, the floater, no. Green was out here shooting around for about an hour and a half before the opening tip.
Kind of like watching the movie Major League. Hey, kid, there's 31 more games just like this. You know, you got to get the... Again, tonight's different. The lights are a little bit brighter than they've been for the exhibition season.
Big screen by Mannion. Toulson, right hand off the window.
Twice in that possession alone, though, the ball got into the paint via the bounce. And Kentucky's got to do a much better job. And Mark Pope doesn't like that call for the timeout because he...
Big Blue Nation, as you came in, what did it feel like to get that welcoming?
Well, I love being here. I love this place, like, deeper than I can possibly explain. We're trying to win this game. We want to come compete and play well against one of the top teams in the country. And it's a real honor to be here, having a chance to fight this fight.
As the guys are here playing hard in the first half, are you seeing that you like?
Well, right now I like the fact that minus this play, we haven't given up offensive rebounds, and we haven't given up any transition buckets, and we have to keep those two principles alive as long as we can in this lane.
Thank you, Coach.
And as Coach was just talking there, Nick Richards, who's been the strongest and most consistent offensive presence so far for Kentucky, got the first second chance points for Kentucky in this game. So no fast break points so far in this game. No second chance points up until that play right there for Kentucky. And those are two stats that have to change for this team to have success, in particular early in this college basketball season.
And believe it or not, 10:51 to go in the first half. Utah Valley has the rebounding edge. That ball knocked out of bounds. Should be Utah Valley ball, and Joe Lindsay says it is. You're up 2 in enemy territory. One of the most hostile environments to play in all of college basketball against the number 5 team in the country. I think Mark Pope would take a 2-point lead right now.
Any coach will take a 2-point lead right now in this building against Kentucky. I mean, it's again, finding yourself, finding a rhythm and a flow. There really hasn't been a great flow for either team. There's been a slightly better flow for Utah Valley in the fact that they can continue to get in the paint off the bounce. And here they go again.
Randolph, the whistle blows. And it'll be a Kentucky foul on Quade Green, his first.
Now, you mentioned Utah Valley and you mentioned the WAC, and high hopes this year for Utah Valley. They feel like they can finish with anybody in the conference, but you've also got to take a look at Grand Canyon. He was the preseason pick. Joshua Braun, player of the year pick, Oregon transfer Casey Benson, a very good team. New Mexico State is going to be right there, as well as Cal State Bakersfield, who made the semifinals in the NIT a season ago.
Toulson runs right into Nick Richards, and another foul is called. Jake Toulson's had a terrific first half. 2 field goals, 2 free throws. He'll go to the line again. That's the first foul on Richards. Now, I think the WAC could be a sleeper conference if there is such a thing.
Look, it's not where the normal RPI has been, for the conference. It has continued to get better, and in those 4 teams that I just mentioned are all going to be in play for trying to win that bid to the NCAA tournament.
And Jake Toulson knocks them both down. He has 8 points. That's a game high. And this Utah Valley team really served notice last year, despite just a .500 record. They went to 4 overtimes in the WAC semis against Cal State Bakersfield, who was the #1 seed. They lost that game, but even going back to the non-conference schedule last year, they beat BYU at the Marriott Center, which almost no one does. They knocked down 18 threes in that game. They also won at New Mexico State and ended the nation's 3rd longest home win streak. So this has been a quick building process for Mark Pope and company.
And a building process, as we've mentioned, through transfers. 14 of their 16 players on their roster are getting a second chance at basketball. P.J. Washington getting his first chance to get in the scoring column here at the free throw line. And he's one of those players that I think they can use so well, and he got fouled trying to post up. I think that's where you're going to see him a lot, because he can out-strength and out-muscle a lot of the players that are going to be defending him by inverting the offense and getting him down low on the block.
Here's some full court pressure again from the Cats. Gilgis Alexander, 22 in white, with those long arms at the top of this Cats defense. 10 minutes gone by in the first half of the first game of the 2017-18 season from Rupp Arena. Rich Hollenberg, Sean Farnham, Brooke Weisberg. And Utah Valley has given these #5 Wildcats all they can handle. Here's a fast break opportunity in transition. Good hands by Utah Valley, and Isaac Nielsen takes it away. Nielsen on the other end. And it's good.
Good execution in transition by Utah Valley. Extends out the lead to 4. It looked like it was going to be 2 for Kentucky. It was good rotation defensively, secured the ball by Nielsen, and then he scores it at the other end.
Good ball movement around the three-point arc, and Hamidou Diallo has a three-pointer, his first points of the night. Sean, earlier in the season in exhibition games, John Calipari's marching orders to Hamidou Diallo were, you shoot a 3, you come out. I don't think he's coming out this time. And Diallo leaks out on the other end. 5 straight points for #3 in white. Hoops play on New Year's Eve right here in Rupp Arena. That is a titanic clap to start conference play.
The SEC is going to be much stronger conference this year from top to bottom. Joe Lunardi's most recent bracketology had 6 teams in. I think the league starts with 7 teams getting in the NCAA tournament to start the year. They've got obviously win games in November and December to solidify that.
Manyan blocked out of bounds by Richards.
Different energy now.
Yeah.
Seems like the opening game jitters, they're starting to breathe a little bit, and because of that, the energy level is starting to increase. A nice job by Nick Richards, playing one-on-one, post defense, not fouling, not reaching, and blocking the shot.
Big-time athlete is Richards. Started out his athletic career playing soccer. He was a high jumper. His favorite athlete's Ronaldo. And don't check your NBA roster. He's Ronaldo, the soccer star. Another shot clock violation, the second one of the night. That's got to make John Calipari happy, and it's got to give Mark Pope headaches.
Again, with a young team, you sometimes just have to weather the storm early. You know, you're trying to find your way, find your rhythm, and get yourself to feel like, okay, wait, this is basketball. I've done this my entire life. That's why I'm here.
This is the first gut punch that the Utah Valley Wolverines have taken from these young Wildcats, ranked number 5 in the season. And we've got an offensive foul, and that gets everybody on the Wolverines bench up and cheering.
This is an aspect that Hamidou Diallo is going to have to get a little bit better at. At times, he can kind of get out of control with the ball. He wants to get in the paint. Teams already know that from watching some of the exhibition games. So they're going to collapse and rotate over and stand in front of you and make you shoot that shot over the top. That time, he initiated the contact, and it was a good call.
Here's a wing 3 off the mark. And Manyan gets a fresh 30 seconds. That ball sails out of bounds over the Kentucky bench. And we have a timeout.
The expectation level is through the roof. Whether 4 or 5, depending upon the poll that you're looking at, the expectation truly here is to win a national championship. And when that's your expectation, and that's the bar, and that's the standard in which you play at, every single game, you know what you're going to get from your opponent.
Nice bounce pass. Kevin Knox met at the rim. He gets it back. Over to Washington. No. No give in this Utah Valley defense. Coming out of that timeout, Brooke Weisbrod was inside the huddle. What did you hear?
A lot of lessons, guys. A lot of teaching points with this young squad, but a couple of points were emphasized. First, they're getting beat off the dribble. They really want to step it up on defense, stop penetration, and then go off of the post moves. When it's doubled, post guys got to pass out, but look for a lot more passes inside, then kick outside if they get doubled.
Thank you, Brooke. As John Calipari has told everybody who would listen to him starting day 1 with this young Wildcats club, he has to reteach everything. There's really not a lot that he hasn't had to go over with this young squad.
Yeah, but this is a very talented group. And you look at the names, and one of the names that we're not going to be talking a lot about tonight is Vanderbilt, Jared Vanderbilt. And I spent time with him at the Nike Hoop Summit, and I left as impressed by him as any other freshman that's on that list. And he's dealing with an injury, and they said that he could be coming back to practice towards the end of the month. And I think he can be a huge difference maker for Kentucky. But even with him being out, you look at the group and the talent they have. As this group continues to mold and grow, this is a version you're seeing right now. The version you'll see by the time we get to January and December 31st for that first game in SEC play will be completely different than the version we're seeing tonight.
Yeah, 3 exhibition games, 1 game tonight, 4 different starting lineups.
20-some-odd practices in.
Yeah.
I mean, the growth factor is going to come, and we've seen it time and time again. And I go back to the first year I was at the SEC and covering the SEC for ESPN. Karl Anthony Towns, his growth and development from the start of the season to where he went towards the end of the season is a big part of why he was the top pick in the NBA draft.
Ogby. Offensive rebound by Nielsen, no. And Gilgeous-Alexander grabs it and is fouled.
This game.
Nick Richards takes a seat on the bench. He leads all scorers with 8. Gilgeous-Alexander knocks down both free throws. Or the first one, I should say. He's got one more coming.
You know, you talk about his wingspan, and I think when you think about elite level guards at the point of attack, that is where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has got to thrive, and he's got to be willing to accept that role that he's going to be an elite level ball stopping guard.
And an unselfish player on the offensive end. That's something that is key for a team loaded with offensive talent like this Wildcats team is. A 9-0 run for the Cats, giving them their largest lead of the game, 5, with just over 6 minutes to go.
You beat off the bounce, but where does the length come into play and the athleticism? And Sasha Kalia-Jones, a nice job recovering after initially getting beat off the bounce. And that's a prime example of that foul call right there, Rich. How many times did John Calipari talk about it today at practice? You have to play defense with your feet. Your hands have to be wide. If you touch the offensive player, it's going to be a foul on you. And that time, P.J. Washington had his hands on the offensive player and quick whistle.
He went as far as to say, if your hands are down, they'll call a foul. Keep your hands up. It's a good lesson for anybody who's trying to learn the sport. 6 minutes to go in the first half. Utah Valley hanging in there with the 5th-ranked Kentucky Wildcats on opening night. Nice move. Ben Naquassa, the 6'2 junior out of Richardson, Texas, has his first 2. Kalia-Jones in the post, working on Manniang. Nice touch, but it falls out. Gabriel can't get it to go either. And the rebound goes to the Wolverines. Utah Valley could tie it with a triple. Instead, Naquassa, the hammer pass. And they do tie it up. A corner 3 by Kenneth Ogby.
Just a great job breaking down the defense and finding the open shooter in the opposite corner.
5 minutes to go in the first half. Gabriel, step back. Short. We'll have another full slate of college.
Let's say he's not in coaching mode. I think he's in permanent teaching mode with this team this early in the season. It's not even about coaching, it's about teaching. The expectations, can't take off a possession. You have to value a possession. So the other day at practice, they were going through a play, and one of the players looked at him and said, "Wait, Coach, it was only one possession. I've had a great practice." And he said, "One possession? Because it can cost you a game." And you can't take off a possession. And that's the difference between the high school level and the college level. And every time you step up levels, whether it's to college or whether it's the next level beyond at the NBA, every possession becomes that much more meaningful.
Utah Valley 8 for 8 from the free throw line. Here's Quade Green off the mark. Loose ball. Who wants it? Manniang has it. They call a jump ball. It'll be possession to Utah Valley. Interesting to note, Mark Pope at the end of every shoot-around, which we were at this morning, has a silent 5 minutes at the very end. No one in the building can make a noise. And he has his team shoot free throws.
I lasted 4 minutes and 57 seconds.
You were close, partner. You were close.
And at the 4 minute, 57 seconds, I looked at you and I started to talk, and then I caught myself. I was like, what am I doing? He asked us all not to talk. It would have been historic. No one in their right mind could think that I could be quiet for 5 minutes.
But Pope had a good point. He said, I do it because it's probably the only quiet 5 minutes that these young student athletes have in their entire day. Randolph partially blocked. It still goes. First 2 of the night for Brandon Randolph, a 6'2 redshirt senior from Inglewood, California. And that's a 9-0 Utah Valley run. They're up by 4 with 4 minutes to go in the first half. Randolph in and out. And a foul. And that's going to go on. Foul was on 0 in the Utah Valley uniform. Akolda Manniang. That's his second foul. The big 7-footer having to take a seat on the bench with 3:59 to go. Knox knocks down the free throw. 2 for 3 from the night from the line. He led this Wildcats team in their 3 exhibition games with 19+ points a game, and you have a distinct feeling like he'll lead this team in scoring.
I do. Just watching him at practice, there's a demeanor about him, a calmness, but yet an understanding of where he has to go on the floor. I think if there's one area of his game he has to continue to work on, is that's the mid-range. You know, consistency from 3. Again, he missed his only 3-point attempt that he's taken so far tonight. Very good in transition, but his mid-range game could make him deadly.
A little too much dribbling, and it's out of bounds. The turnover from Toulson. And it'll be Wildcats ball. That's their 6th turnover for Utah Valley. Chance to tie it or take a lead on this possession for Kentucky. They've trailed most of this first half. Rich Hollenberg, Sean Farnham, Brooke Weisberger. Opening night of college basketball season 2017-18. And these Cats have high expectations, but they are on the ropes against the Utah Valley Wolverines from the Western Athletic Conference. Nice feed inside, and Nielsen converts on the assist from Randolph.
You can see why they are so excited for Randolph to be their guard once again. He's going to be one of the more complete and well-rounded guards in all of the WAC.
Knox worked his way inside, couldn't get it to go. The rebound to number 12, Jonas Tavanainen, who's seeing his first action of the night. Another nice feed. And Nielsen cleans it up.
It doesn't count as an assist, but it should. Randolph is just slicing them up. The length is not bothering the transfer from Xavier.
31-25 and another Kentucky turnover. Largest lead of the game, and they could extend it here with a bucket. What do you like about Utah Valley's offense, Sean?
The last 2 possessions, put the ball in that guy's hands as much as possible. I love that.
That is a cold-blooded 3 by Brandon Randolph. Inside Rupp Arena in stunned silence. One of their own, Mark Pope, a member of the 1996 National Championship team for Kentucky, has brought his Utah Valley club in from Orem, Utah, and they lead by 9. Wade Green for 3. No. Rebound. Richards. In between. Utah Valley Wolverines can't get it to go.
Well, Utah Valley is just swarming the ball, in particular in the post. Their ability to collapse defensively and then sprint back out to contest shots has been very impressive.
Mark Pope was hoping they could win 2 or 3 minute increments in this game. They've won almost every increment except for maybe 2 or 3 minutes.
They had a 4-point lead, and then quickly it was a good run by Kentucky to take a 5-point lead here in the first half, and you were kind of wondering, would Utah Valley respond? Well, they've done more than just that. They are on a 16-2 run.
And UK, conversely, 0 for their last 11 from the field. There's Mkwasa working on Green. And Quade Green came into this year as a freshman saying, I want to be the best defensive guard that Kentucky has ever seen. Saw a little bit of that defense just now. That's the 3rd foul on number 10 for Utah Valley, Ben Mkwasa. He'll have to sit the rest of the half as Corey Calvert, number 1, checks in for the first time tonight. This is not even a full-strength Utah Valley team. Aiden Skank, a key member of this team from last year, back at home in Orem. He's out for the year with a patella tendon injury. Top of the key 3 by Gilgeous Alexander, no good. Offensive rebound to Gabriel. Loose ball, Gabriel. And Ogby comes away with it with under a minute to go.
The toughness of Utah Valley, very impressive. And Kentucky is just pressing at the offensive end now. They have not seen the ball go through with any kind of ease for the last 10 minutes of this first half.
And a lot of the 50-50 balls are going the way of the Wolverines. 8 to shoot. High screen for Calvert. And he traveled.
As you think about it, 28 seconds, the shot clock is off, and it's a 9-point lead for the Wolverines. The young Cats stumbling in their first half of the regular season.
So, Sean, at the very top of this telecast, I asked you who could be the dude for Kentucky with one shot here before halftime. What do you think they run?
I think they're going to try to run an on-ball screen action and then get something going towards the basket, kick to a shooter if they're open. Saw him work on it today at practice. Wave off the on-ball screen.
With 4 to shoot. Loose ball. And Utah Valley grabs it, and that is appropriate because they have dominated this first half.
Kentucky and a flow offensively. Their last 15 shots. And in the first 20 minutes, they shot worse than 22%, 21.9% from the field.
Kentucky in white has the ball out of the break. This time, Wenyon Gabriel starts the second half. Blocked by Mannion. Out of bounds, it'll stay Kentucky ball with 14 seconds on the shot clock.
Kentucky on their first possession. I like what Coach Cal was trying to do. Get the team moving. You saw a lot of curl cuts coming off the screens on the weak side, trying to get some energy going for the Kentucky Wildcats coming down the break.
Here's Nick Richards. Blocked again by Mannion.
Mannion, one of the best shot blockers in the Big 12 when he played for Oklahoma before transferring to Utah Valley.
A no-look pass, and Kenneth Ogby starts off the second half in high-flying fashion. What a start for the Wolverines out of the break.
You get a stop at the defensive end of the floor. 2 block shots by Mannion, and then the back cut. Wenyon Gabriel watching the ball, not having an awareness of where his man was, snuck up too high, opened the door, and Ogby able to finish it.
Completes the three-point play. Kenneth Ogby has 8 points. And there's Matt Holland, the university president. This is a university that a few years ago had 12,000 students enrolled. They now are the largest university in the state of Utah at 37,000. They're second chance U, not just on the basketball team, Sean. This is an entire university that has embraced that culture and identity.
Right now, what Coach Calipari is trying to get his team to embrace is a rhythm and flow offensively. A turnover on the outside, shuffling their feet, trying to go a little bit too fast. Utah Valley just gave it back to them, but for Kentucky, these guys have not been in this position before. I mean, in any of the exhibition games, everything was kind of going their way. Things aren't working for them right now. So you've got to start relying on being unselfish and making that extra pass.
Knox knocks down another 3.
And Kentucky, it makes the adjustment defensively. They're going to fall back into their 2-3 zone. Here's Kentucky with all their length, able to pressure up. Instead, they're falling back into their 2-3 zone. This is where their length can really force you to shoot over the top. Even more so now if you're Utah Valley, you want to try to find a piece of the paint.
Here's Toulson. Can't answer with the 3, and Wenyon Gabriel comes away with it. Knox with an exclamation point. Tipped away. Here's Diallo.
If I was Coach Cal, I would anticipate they're going to fall back here into the 2-3. And they are. They stay with it. Utah Valley, very uncertain. They have not been able to find a way to get the ball inside the paint since you switched to the 2-3 zone.
It's Diallo and Gilgis Alexander at the top of that zone. That is a lot of length. And another turnover. And another jam by Diallo.
Sometimes it's the simplest of adjustments that can ignite your team. A 9-0 run for the Kentucky Wildcats.
And 9 points for Diallo to pull them to within 3. Toulson. And he drew the foul.
when everything's coming out over the top, it just makes life a little bit more difficult. Second play in a row, by the way, that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been able to deflect the ball away from the offensive player, leading to Diallo dunks.
That's 6'6" and 6'5" at the top of that zone, and another turnover. Here's Gilgeous-Alexander with the step through, and one.
I think they just thought it was a goaltending because the rim was touched.
And now that veteran Utah Valley team is trying to keep it together. An 11-0 Kentucky Wildcats run has pulled the Cats to within 1 point. And now some full court pressure from John Calipari. He senses that he has the Wolverines on the ropes.
And so does this Rupp Arena crowd.
Inside, Mannion, foul, and he'll go to the line.
With 2 first-half fast break points for Kentucky, 8 already here in the second half, has evaporated that lead and made it just down to 1 for Utah Valley. And Rich, you talk about a player that needed a second chance. Mannion is probably the best example of a player looking for a second chance. I mentioned earlier he was at Oklahoma, broke his foot during his time there. His brother died actually during the Final Four run. Before that, he was in foster care. A Sudanese refugee. His mother passed away at the age of 14. He's finally found himself.
Stolen away by Naquassa. New life on offense for Utah Valley. Diallo, the weak side rebound. A chance to take the lead for Kentucky. Something they haven't had since early in the first half. Gabriel. Got it! Too much dribbling by Ogby forces the turnover. Gilgeous-Alexander again.
The zone has made Utah Valley hesitant in their offense. They're uncertain right now. They're not passing the ball with the same level of crispness we saw in the first half. They're not attacking it as aggressively. And that's because sometimes the zone can get you on your heels, especially with the length that Kentucky has out on the floor right now.
Naquassa. Knox rips away that rebound. Gabriel with 10 on the shot clock. He hit a 3 earlier. He goes in the paint for 2 this time.
Have changed.
Yeah, almost all dunks and layups to go on this run to give them the 7-point advantage or 6-point advantage over Utah Valley.
This is the largest lead of the game for Kentucky.
Big possession out of a timeout for Mark Pope's club. How will they answer after that gut punch from the Cats? Ogby, beautiful left hand by Kenneth Ogby. He's in double digits with 10.
Transfer from Utah, very aggressive, found a seam, able to attack.
Time to shoot. Richards low post. Tried to squeeze it into Knox, and it's a turnover. Drive, kick, Toulson, yes.
What an answer out of a timeout for Utah Valley. That's been the impressive thing for me about Utah Valley is that they're not backing down. In those moments, you see a 16-0 run, and now it's a 5-0 run just out of a timeout, just like that.
drill, thought about it. Diallo pulls the trigger.
That's your prototypical one more. You had a good pass by Wenyan Gabriel, but he made the one more pass to Hamidou Diallo at the top of the key.
Something they work on ad nauseum at the Joe Craft Center here in Lexington. Ball's out of bounds. It'll be Utah Valley basketball. Saturday at 10 Eastern, the SEC Nation traveling pregame show heads to Auburn for #1 Georgia, taking on those #14 Tigers as they break down everything from the gridiron to the grill for Week 11 in college football. SEC Nation, presented by Johnsonville, right here on the SEC Network.
Big weekend of football ahead, not just in the SEC, but the Notre Dame-Miami game this weekend. A lot of ramifications as far as what you think the college football playoff series will look like. Certainly standings will be adjusted after this weekend. Oklahoma versus TCU, another game in the Big 12.
Ogby from the wing. And a few different cats were just looking at the basketball. And a reach-in foul.
It's one of those moments where you just need to have a little bit of discipline. You had a good double team on the ball. No need whatsoever to reach in. But P.J. Washington has done that actually a couple of times in this game where he's played defense with his hands rather than just trusting his instincts to keep his hands wide and up. Coach Cal often talks about having the hands defensively above the level of your hips.
Guys, you know this, even by Coach Cal's standards, this is a young team, and we saw a lot of teaching moments yesterday in practice, especially when he stopped the action. He said, you guys have a game tomorrow, and you're acting like this. You can't be who you are. So I asked him what he meant by that, and he said to form new habits. He's really had to get more involved this season than ever. He's had to get louder and redefine what the word work and preparation really means. And tonight, his game plan was pretty simple. Fight through fatigue and play harder than the guys on the other side of the ball. Certainly a different team than we saw in the first half.
Yeah, it's interesting. He evoked a name from his past at UMass, Edgar Padilla. Great guard for him with the Minutemen. He went and visited UMass practice, and he said he goes back to his days playing for Coach Cal up in the New England area and saying that was when he learned what it meant to work, and now Coach Cal is having to reenact that with these baby cats.
Yeah, good floor spacing, though, that offensive possession by Utah Valley. And gets Ogby to the free throw line. And, you know, Rich, I mentioned the transfer from Utah. He was a member of the U20 German national team. He's been injury-plagued throughout the course of his career. Most recently, he's dealt with a collarbone injury. It was so bad that they literally said at Utah Valley that they burned the tape. Because when he was on the floor, he started to convulse, and they really didn't know what was going on until they all settled it down, and he just started practicing this week. And to have the kind of performance he's had so far in this game with limited practice really stands out as far as where this team is going to be a month from now, 2 months from now as it gets ready for conference play.
Amazing that broken collarbone happened just in September. And now Kenneth Ogby with 12 points to lead these Wolverines, and they only trail the Cats by 2. Diallo showing that vert.
Great job crashing on the weak side.
Skip pass. Diallo got the soft rims here at Rupp Arena.
One of the first half, he did that drive, and he tried to do the one-legged floater, and he drifted into the defensive player. It ended up being a charge. That time he stopped on 2, went straight up and straight down, trusting his touch, able to finish.
Here's Toulson for 3, too strong. Good tip by Nielsen, and a fresh 30. They can't convert, and Knox gets the rebound. There's Quade Green in transition. Diallo, no. Sasha Kalia Jones with the follow and got fouled. Jones, the 6'10 sophomore out of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, at the line for the first time tonight. He was the youngest player on the team last year. Now he finds himself in the position of veteran as a sophomore. Former 5-star recruit, McDonald's All-American, misses them both. Chance to pull back within 1 possession. Randolph had a seam, but he didn't take it. 8 to shoot. 5 on the clock. Naquasa, wave it off. It's offensive. What'd you see from that man-to-man defense that time, Sean?
Pretty good rotations all the way around. On the drive. Baseline. Yeah, that's a good call. Mark Pope didn't like it. He was pointing to the restricted arc area. I don't think either feet were in there. Tough to see from that angle and tough to see from the vantage point of where we were sitting. But I like the aggressiveness out of Utah Valley. They've got to do more of that. They've got to attack those seams. You mentioned Randolph had one, didn't take it. I think you've got to take those opportunities when you have them.
PJ Washington tried to use the rim as protection. He got fouled, and he'll go to the line.
That's the first time they didn't bring the double team on the post. Washington, every other time he's caught the ball on the block, they've brought the double team, usually coming from that low side. They didn't do it. He spun off.
PJ Washington, a 6'7" freshman out of Dallas. Spent time at Finley Prep in Las Vegas.
Well, and right now you're having a discussion at the scorer's table.
And bad news for Ben, that's his 4th.
Well, the Ben Naquasa foul was at the previous end on the offensive charge. The official scorer charged this to Manyang, which it was not his foul.
Heads up pass by PJ Washington to Nick Richards off the free throw miss. Seven-point UK lead. Coming up on 9 minutes gone by in the second half. The 5th-ranked Cats have gotten more than what they bargained for against these Utah Valley Wolverines. Blocked by Richards. Manyang gets it back. Taken away by Washington. And the Cats come away with a 50-50 ball. All freshmen on the floor for Kentucky. Top of the key. Knox too strong. The three-point ball hasn't gone down for Kevin Knox.
That's going to be a foul on Richards pushing in the back on Maine. Vermont is a team that won 29 games a season ago. They returned 4 starters, including the American East Player of the Year, Trey Bell Haynes, plus the American East Tournament MVP and Rookie of the Year, 6'6" Anthony Lance, who might be even more talented than the Player of the Year was. The Vermont Catamounts are a legitimate team that will make the NCAA tournament this season.
3 games in 5 days for the 5th-ranked Kentucky Wildcats. Manyang, another block. Goes out of bounds. Utah Valley's going to take over.
Manyang continues to alter and protect the rim. It's going to be so important for him to avoid foul trouble over the course of the season. You want him to keep that level of aggressiveness and protect the rim, but you don't want him spending time on the bench.
What a difference maker he's going to be in the WAC. Randolph guarded by Gilgeous-Alexander. 8 to shoot. Toulson. Shot fake, baseline. Pulled the trigger, but pulled the string as well.
I was going to say he pulled the trigger, but he pulled the string, and that's the reason why he came up short.
We'll have another full slate of college football for you Saturday. Ole Miss hosting Louisiana Lafayette at noon Eastern. Then it's the 6-3 Kentucky Wildcats football team taking on Vanderbilt in Nashville at 4. And to cap off the day, Tennessee and Missouri in our SEC Saturday night game presented by Holiday Inn Express.
Speaking of Missouri, Missouri comes up right after us. They're one of those teams in the SEC that's going to make a massive turnaround. If you haven't seen Michael Porter Jr. play before, sit back and relax against Iowa State. It's going to be a great contest coming up immediately following after our game here on the SEC Network. And it's not just Michael Porter Jr. You got Blake Harris, a talented freshman, along with Jeremiah Tillman, and then Jonte Porter, his younger brother, who reclassified to play with him this season.
Randolph, the teardrop doesn't go. Knox clears. Great look up ahead to Washington. Big man running the floor gets rewarded. First field goal of the night for P.J. Washington, who has 5. And that's the largest lead for the Cats at 9, but an answer from Utah Valley.
I'll say Mark Pope has done a tremendous job with this Utah Valley program. And I had the opportunity when he was at BYU. I covered a lot of WCC games, and I got to see him work with players like Brandon Davies, and just amazed with the individual player development aspect to his coaching ability. And to see him now rounding into form as a head coach, I think he's one of those guys, in particular out in the western region of the United States, as jobs come available, there's going to be a lot of people calling because he just gets it. He has the pedigree of playing here at Kentucky, then in the NBA level, coaching for multiple years as an assistant, finding who he was as a head coach, and now establishing his system at Utah Valley.
He lists, among others, George Karl as one of his biggest coaching influences. Played for him in the NBA on 2 different teams. There's Diallo with the jumper.
I like when Diallo runs that curl cut, gets his feet set, no dribble, just elevate up and finish.
16 leads all scorers, Hamidou Diallo. An 8-point Kentucky lead. They trailed at the break. Step back 3. Might have rushed it. And Washington comes away with the board.
Just better composure here in the second half by Kentucky. They're not allowing second chance point opportunities. They've done a much better job securing the glass.
And a foul is going to be called on.
Approach. Very calm, understands what he wants to do. He said, look, I'm not your typical one and done. I really want this program to be more than just, hey, I played here for a year. And the last 2 #1 picks that we've seen in the draft, Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons, neither one of them made the NCAA tournament. It is a point of emphasis for this Missouri Tigers team.
Offensive rebound.
They were in the early stages, especially in the beginning pages of the first half. Excuse me, easy for me to say, Rich. It's opening night for me too.
You're in mid-season form, partner. There's Knox with an easy 2 at the other end. He's in double digits with 10.
And again, largest lead of the game, now up to 10 for Kentucky.
And they're calling that one on Knox again. John Calipari's probably going to have to go to his bench.
Nah, he'll leave him in right now. What he's upset about right now is the communication from the sideline was to go into the zone defense. They stayed in their man-to-man. During the first half, by the way, Utah Valley, they were great from the free throw line. 8 of 8. They've missed a bunch here in the second half. That's the fatigue factor for the effort. The question was, can they sustain what they did in the first 20 in the second half? 3 of 8 from the free throw line here in the second half.
Eight to shoot. Diallo threads the needle to Sasha Kalia-Jones. 4 for Jones, 12-point lead for the Cats.
Here's that zone defense that I was talking about. Coach Cal was upset they didn't make the transition that last possession. This time they figured it out.
Gabriel. Gilgeous-Alexander at the other end. And Sean, with the lead up to 14, one thing that John Calipari was very honest about was this team was not in game shape. In other words, they play a couple of minutes in spurts and not be able to sustain that energy because they just aren't used to it. Now playing the zone, I would imagine, gives you a little bit of a breather on the defensive end.
Gives you a little bit of a breather, but their energy levels and their activity levels better in the zone than it is the man. You see, that's the problem. This team is taking breaks in their man-to-man defense. When the ball is away from them, where in their zone, they're staying attached, using their length, jumping to the level of the ball, and squeezing Utah Valley. You don't see a lot of dribble penetration like we saw in the first half. Here in the second half, when they've gone to the zone.
Nice entry pass that time, and a big follow by the big man. Akolda Manyang with his first bucket of the second half.
Foul away from the ball on Sasha Kalia-Jones.
That's number 3 on number 1, Sasha Kalia-Jones. Nick Richards will check back in his place. on the floor for Kentucky, 5 transfers on the floor for Utah Valley.
A contested 3 in a one-pass offensive possession, I think, is exactly what Kentucky would love to see more of down the stretch of this game. If you're Utah Valley, you've got to swing it, you've got to try to attack, you've got to get a piece of the paint.
Diallo slices in and gets it to go.
You see how good he is moving without the ball. That time utilizing the screen, curling in, and catching and just shooting. I like it best when he doesn't have to put the ball on the floor.
Here's Toulson. Had an open look and knocks it down. Jake Toulson's first 3 of the night. 65, Sean. That's a big win for the SEC.
That is a huge win, a statement win. Remember, the SEC had the most wins of any conference last year in the NCAA tournament. People forget about it. They were 11-5 in the NCAA tournament. 7th consecutive year that the SEC's been better than 500 in the field.
And they've gotten so much better this year compared to last year.
And think about this, at least one team in the Final Four, 7 of the last 12 years. Now, a lot of people go, oh, it's Kentucky. Well, let's not forget about Florida. And, of course, South Carolina and Frank Martin's great run a season ago.
South Carolina will be featured in the Puerto Rico tip-off, which will be taking place in their backyard, relatively speaking, in Conway, South Carolina, near Myrtle Beach. Of course, our thoughts and prayers go to everybody in Puerto Rico, suffering through those 2 major hurricanes, and a lot of people playing exhibitions, South Carolina being one of them, to raise money for relief efforts over there.
We go back to the man-to-man. Let's see if they can maintain their same level of execution. Getting to the ball, having an awareness of where you are on the floor. And they squeeze off the paint and force Utah to shoot over the top. So far, so good on this possession.
5 on the shot clock. Here's Toulson, net at the rim. Goes out of bounds, and with 2 on the shot clock, Mark Pope on this floor inside Rupp Arena, 134-6 at home in the John Calipari era here. Now entering its 9th season in Lexington. Did they get it off? No, they didn't.
And Alabama, by the way, tonight played without Colin Sexton, a very talented freshman. He sat out tonight's game. They still won by 12 over Memphis on a neutral site win for Avery Johnson to get his season started.
He will be available game 2, though, correct?
That's according to the report that we saw earlier today, yes. And a very talented player who played with a lot of these Kentucky kids up in Portland at the Nike Hoop Summit. And Alabama's one of those teams that has their sights being a top 25 team this season and making the NCAA tournament.
Knox slashes in. Bodies go flying, but the ball doesn't go through the hoop. Nielsen grabs it for Utah Valley. Down by 11. They led by 9 at half.
Oh, great
nice
pass.
look. Big to big passing. Manyang to Nielsen, who has 10.
He elevated his big by dribbling up to the lane. Created a great backdoor seam for Nielsen to be able to finish.
Coming up on 3 minutes to go. The home opener, the season opener for the 5th-ranked Kentucky Wildcats. Here's Diallo. Way off the mark. On the weak side board to Ogby. Randolph threw it away. Gabriel gathers himself and flips it in. Wenyen Gabriel has 7.
Lead back up to double digits. Wenyen Gabriel, so long, so athletic. Caught that ball actually underneath the basket, able to reverse it and finish.
Nice job by Connor Toulson. A little up and under move, giving him 10 on the night. Lest we forget, still 2+ minutes to go in this game against Kentucky. These Utah Valley Wolverines are jumping on a charter plane and flying directly to Durham, where they will play the Duke Blue Devils tomorrow afternoon. It's not even a night game, Sean. Beautiful up and under, but it doesn't go for Gilgeous-Alexander, out of bounds. And wholesale substitution. Talking about the Wildcats, of course, until Saturday, February 3rd. That game will be in Columbia, and then they'll meet again on the 24th here at Rupp Arena.
They reviewed it. Obviously, the ball stayed with Kentucky.
And Connor Toulson, all 6'4", 185 pounds of him, went toe-to-toe with P.J. Washington, who weighs 6'7", 236.
P.J. kind of had that little smirk on his face, you know, but that is a great foul. You know why it's a great foul? You didn't give him an N1 opportunity. If you're going to take the foul, take the foul. Don't go in soft. Throw everything you've got at it, and trust me, he did.
That's out of the Sean Farnham handbook.
You can't be soft around the rim. You can't have the ticky-tack reach-in fouls. You miss the first free throw now, all of a sudden you've already won that possession, as long as you get the rebound here. And they don't.
Fresh 30 for the Cats with only 1:40 to go in the contest. Both these teams with tough follow-up games after tonight. Utah Valley travels to Duke tomorrow, and the Catamounts of Vermont come in here to Rupp Arena on Sunday.
Good offense that time, though. Got the ball down low in the post. Good ball reversal quickly over the top. Simplistic move by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Didn't overcomplicate things.
Manniang stuffs it home. Well, Kentucky's going to win this game, Sean, but I think we both feel the same way about this Utah Valley team. This feels like a win for them, regardless of the final score.
There is no moral victory, though, for Mark Pope. And, you know, his team came out, they played 20 minutes. And I think one of the things that he mentioned for us today, Rich, was he considers it a good thing if they stay true to who they are. If they play to their principles, if they execute the way they want to. And from that vantage point, this is a successful night for Utah Valley. Now the challenge for them is getting on that plane tonight, waking up, and doing it again tomorrow at Duke.
They'll look back on this experience this entire weekend, the toughest 24 they're calling it, and they'll remember it for the rest of their lives. They'll tell their grandkids about this weekend.
Well, and we've got great footage, by the way, of it. We're embedded with the team all week long. It's up on ESPN.com. You'll see it on SportsCenter as well.
Look for that on Sunday morning, as well as your sit-down with Michael Porter.
Had a good opportunity to talk to Michael Porter, but this is the toughest 24. This is what they've done so far. They departed yesterday towards Lexington, landed, immediately came and practiced. They tip off tonight. They obviously had shoot around earlier today. They're going to depart immediately after this game for Durham, North Carolina. Hope to land by midnight, which means you're in your hotel by 1, and then they take on Duke tomorrow and fly right back home.
Sleep is underrated, Farnham. And you can see the frustration on Mark Pope's face. Under a minute to go. Balanced scoring tonight for the Cats. Diallo with 18, Richards with 10, Knox had 12, Gilgeous-Alexander had 13. Fast break opportunity, and Randolph finishes. It's going to be a big part of the Wolverines' success this season. Shot clock is off. Stolen by Toulson. And Randolph again. Just a 6-point game with 15 seconds to go. And Quade Green will go to the line. Green held scoreless tonight.
Situational basketball, always important, and that's one of the learning opportunities that Utah Valley has right now, is how do you play when you're trailing late? Who do you foul? Who do you want to send to the free throw line? What kind of havoc can you create? From the Kentucky standpoint, is you're getting full court press by Utah Valley. Can you not avoid the turnover? Can you be patient enough to realize that they're going to foul and get the ball in the hands of the player you want to get to the free throw line?
You see Quade Green, after knocking down the first free throw, coach on the floor. Continuing a long line of super talented point guards to come through Kentucky under the tutelage of John Calipari. Green knocks them both down. And that's why he'll be on the floor come crunch time in just about every game. 8-point game, 10 seconds to go. Taken away by Gabriel. Credit these Utah Valley Wolverines. They led by 9 at the half. They trail by 8 right now. But they have earned the respect of everybody in this building, not the least of which is the team they played against tonight, this 5th-ranked Kentucky Wildcats.
And for Kentucky, this is a great opportunity for Coach Cal and the coaching staff to break down this film. Really show them what they did right. And I've mentioned it numerous times here in the second half. The zone defense is what created the energy and the positive energy for Kentucky at the offensive end of the floor. I anticipate that you're going to see more of that in the next couple of games. But for this team to be elite, they're going to need to learn how to do it in their man-to-man. And they're going to need to be able to stop dribble penetration and want to guard the person that is in front of them. But also when you're not guarding the ball, that you have an awareness of what's going on away from you.
What was the best thing you saw from Kentucky tonight?
The zone defense leading to transition.
The buzzer sounds, and we have our final score, 73-63.